Every story has a heartbeat. And today on the podcast, we're going to talk about that. So stay tuned.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey to publication. Podlication? I don't know. I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian fiction.
And I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Jamie Hirschberger. Can you hear me? I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
We can hear you. You do sound like you're kind of far away from the mic. It's different.
Far away. I don't know.
I'm here.
How does this work? Is that any better?
Way better.
Way better? Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. Right. So we would like to thank all of our people that are listening to us live on our Facebook and watching us and chatting in the chat. We love that. We also want to thank everyone who listens to us on any podcast platform that you happen to listen to us on. And we just ask that you would spread the word, hit all the likes and the shares and the subscribes and whatever happens to be called on your platform. And we have a goal. We're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the year, because when you hit 1,000 subscribers, you get a little bit more availability to do like short videos and things like that through YouTube. You have to have 1,000 subscribers before you can do those things. So if you could help us out with that, we would greatly appreciate it. Okay, so we are going to get right into our topic of the day, which is, let me get I lost my outline.
We're talking today about pacing and momentum. We're talking about your story's pulse, basically, is what we were going to do.
Right. Okay. So what is the difference between pacing and momentum? Do we have like a definition of those two words?
So pacing is the different. So it's kind of how quickly your story beats occur, how quickly the action of the plot is happening in your story, and momentum is the forward motion of your reader wanting to read more. Like you're going to write it in a way that this is what's happening actually in the story, whether someone reads it or not. This is what the pacing is of the story. The momentum is getting everybody excited about wanting to read the next page. Why are you smiling like that, Jamie? What did I do?
No, it's my brain. Like I was thinking, okay, so if you're pacing yourself like on a treadmill or something because you're trying to reach a certain heart rate or something, that's pacing. But then momentum is when you start going down a mountain and cannot stop and your legs just trying to keep whirling and whirling.
Yes.
So that's why I was laughing, because I was just picturing someone with cartoon legs that can't stop.
or like me, when you trip and you just start rolling down the mountain, your momentum is
Jack and Jill, right?
Yes, exactly. So
it just made me think about this video I just saw the other day where a guy was on a mountain and he killed a caribou. And to get down the mountain, he actually climbed onto the caribou and grabbed its horns and like slid down the mountain on the back of the dead caribou. And he was like using the horns to steer it. It was
like legitimately.
I'm so glad I know you, because I would have never heard that story otherwise.
Right?
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a real video. It was not AI, you could tell.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And then like in the comments, people were like, oh, we do that all the time. Like, I was like, okay, this is apparently a thing. Dead caribou sledding or deer or whatever.
Listen, if you're in the city, you have no idea. Living in the country, I've done both. I've lived in the city for several years, but I grew up in the country. I live in the country again. It's totally different. Totally different.
I lived in the city in the country, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was in Alaska, surrounded by wilderness, but I lived in the biggest city in Alaska.
Oh,
but we were like 10 minutes from the mountains. So,
yeah.
Okay,
all right. So back to the topic. Yeah. So some examples I would say for pacing would be like when you write an action scene or a chase scene. Gosh, for sure. Or like not so like actiony. Like if somebody has to make like a quick decision. um, or like anything that would get your heart rate up. And
Right.
then slow pacing would be when somebody would be like reflective or maybe sitting and reading scripture. Um, just anything that would kind of like show like an emotional or a spiritual growth. Could be having a conversation with somebody like my wise sage conversations are more slow pace. So yeah, so there's some examples of pacing.
Yeah. And I like to think of David's story. He had
Mhm.
moments of fleeing Saul at a dead sprint and moments of hiding in caves, praying and waiting on God.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's a good example. So
Yeah, I wonder who came up with that. So scene length, we know that scene length directly affects how your story feels, and long scenes invite immersion and introspection, and short scenes accelerate tension. So what are some tips for controlling pace through your scene length?
Through scene length. Well, that's a little bit different than, say, sentence length. So you want to think about when Jen was talking about the momentum of the reader, right? What effect do you want the scene to have on the reader's pace as they go through the book? Do you want the reader to spend some time lingering, or do you want the reader to breathlessly turn to the next section? That would, I think, determine how long or short to make the scene.
I love that you brought up sentences though. So let's stop there. Let's kind of backtrack and let's talk about sentences for a second, because I think that for me to write a scene with stakes really starts with the sentences, right? Like I could write about somebody being chased, but if I write these long, fluid, very descriptive sentences, it's not going to feel like the person's being chased, right?
Exactly.
So when you need to there, but again, so let's start with sentences. So usually short, choppier sentences, less description, maybe some more internal, what's going on with their heart rate, um, the things that they're sensing. Like try to look at their other senses. Like when you think about a horror movie, if you watch something scary, what happens to your body when you watch it? You know, and what are they showing you on the screen that's making that happen? So you try to mimic that with your writing, and it's going to be shorter, choppier. Word choices just gonna be much more emotionally evoking quickly, kind of like that. So when you take those sentences and then you want to translate those into a scene, which is what we're talking about specifically right now, is that you could do the same thing with your scene. You can make it short and choppy, like and make the scene shorter, and then get someone's heart rate up really fast. But you could also take those short sentences and make a scene longer too. And it would still have the same effect. It just depends on what you have to. Now, you need, like Jamie said, you need to know what you want to accomplish with that scene. And then if it's many layers of things you need to accomplish, you're probably going to have many layers of things happening in the scene. But again, by keeping that with those short sentences, that will help. And I think that like by varying the lengths of your sentences a little bit and varying your different scenes in your book is going to help. If you made every single chapter or every single scene that is supposed to be a faster pace, if you made it short, it's going to feel just genuine to your reader, right? It's eventually it's going to become very predictable and they're not going to like it. So you need to practice writing short scenes that are high stakes, as well as some little bit longer, more layered scenes as well.
And I think as a general rule,
Mm-hmm.
when I've read like thrillers or things like that, the chapters tend to be shorter than say like a epic fantasy.
Yeah.
Just in general.
In general, yeah.
But even in those thrillers and crime things or whatever, you have shorter scenes, longer scenes, short sentences, long sentences. Because if your whole book is just short sentences, you're going to exhaust your reader, which I'm probably getting ahead of the outline on that, but
I probably did too. So
it's one of those days.
So go ahead.
Moving on. So like basically we're talking about alternating the tension and the rest too. That's the next thing. So we talked about the sentences being short and choppy, the scenes really concentrating on how short or layered long you're going to make your scenes. But then what do you do? Like, how do you put that into your story? Because let me tell you, if every single chapter is short and high stakes, like stories breathe. Like there's an oxygen to what you're writing. And guess what? The person who's reading your book, they're a live breathing person. And so if you keep them on the edge of their seat the entire time, they're not going to be able to breathe. Maybe that's a little bit figuratively. I'm hoping they still can actually breathe when they're reading your book, but you got to allow them time to breathe. Were you going to say something, Jamie?
Yeah, I keep thinking about when you're consuming media, there is somebody whose job it is to provide a soundtrack. And when the scene is one where they're being chased, the music is like faster and is the music itself has a faster pace. And then I immediately thought of the game Super Mario Brothers, and how when Mario's just going through his normal day, it's do 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 do, and then he gets into those tunnels and do 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 do. And so you think of your scenes the similar sort of a way. What soundtrack would this scene have? And if it would be clippier and zippier, then that's how you want to be thinking as you're writing. And hopefully it will translate and come out in your fingertips.
I love that example. Because have you ever seen somebody take the music out of a scary movie and then you play the scenes? It's a completely different experience. It's not as scary. I think you could do the same thing with a romantic movie. They're probably not as romantic without the music. And the music is in the background, and mostly you don't even really notice it. So what does that translate to our writing? I would say it's the description words, right? It's what makes our words pretty. And so you think about the music in the background. If it's going to be something that's high stakes, you're probably going to have less prettiness, right? It's going to be choppier, shorter. And then when to slow it down, you are going to have more description. You're going to be a little bit more creative with just how you're going to, the artistic side of what you're doing, right? But I think it's important to understand that you need both. Like you need
you can't only exhale.
Yeah, and you can't only inhale. Yeah, that's exactly right. Because the whole goal is, ladies and gentlemen, is for your reader to want to go on to the next chapter.
Right.
And if you make it too fast paced and they need a break, they're going to take a break. And you know, hopefully they'll come back to your book, but they may not. I've left books that I thought did not have good pacing. I don't even know sometimes if I even realize that's why I left the books. But if they cause too much anxiety in me, and I'm like, this is supposed to be an escape. Like, I can't do this. Like, it's probably because they weren't giving enough time for breathing, right?
And I just did this the other day because I was reading this book and it was supposed to be post-apocalyptic, like the world just imploded and they're like running for their lives. But there was just too much introspection. Like it was just paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of like the person in their head, like, you know, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? When not enough physical action. And I got bored and I didn't shut it because it was on my Kindle. It's just like
slammed it shut.
I'm not reading. I'm not finishing this. It's just too much.
You need to get a case for your Kindle so you can slam the shut. Because I have one.
Maybe I'll have to start reading on my iPad because I do have a case for my iPad.
So we need to give them rest moments as well. So I would say like you need to balance. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, exactly how to do it. But the physical action or the emotional conflict or the spiritual like doubt or faith issues, like they are like, oh, do I kill this person and save the world, or am I like, or do I sacrifice myself? Those kind of moments. With the rest moments, like Tina said, like the introspection, or lighter interactions. Like I said, the wise sage, excuse me, the wise sage moments. My wise sage moments in my books, which I've talked about before when we talk about plotting, are never a high stakes. It's always one of these down times. It's one of the slow down times, because in real life, is anyone going to be listening to advice when they are being chased by dinosaurs? They're not, right? Like they're just looking for some sort of like tree to climb, or I don't know, like Jurassic
That part
Park
of your brain shuts
truck.
down when you're in fight or
Yes.
flight. Like
Right.
like in my books, a lot of times there's like walking through nature and noticing the nature and then going into some kind of introspection.
Yeah.
And those are like the quiet moments in between the action.
And I think, I mean, let's be honest, God built in rest for a reason too. God understood this
Yep.
concept in real life. You know, like Genesis shows us the perfect pattern. Like there was work and then there was rest. And that's how our writing should be as well.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Okay, let's talk about chapter structure and breaks. So these are pacing tools. They're not just page markers, right?
mm-hmm. We get questions a lot. We have in the past about like, how do I know when to break for a chapter, and you know, when is it just a scene break? And this episode here will help to answer that in a lot of ways. Honestly, like y'all know me, it's all about plotting for me. Like, this is how you'll know is that you'll plot it out. But the reason you get plotted out, part of it is for this reason. But you use your chapter breaks to go between the high pace pacing to the low pace pacing for the they're not just like page markers. It's not just like, well, there's 2,500 words. I'm gonna stop here and then start again. Like there has to be purpose behind it. But I think scenes as well. I think I will often have two different scenes within a chapter, but the reason they're still in the same chapter and I don't have two small chapters is because they're still fulfilling the purpose for that chapter. They might even be from two different perspectives. And I've heard people say never have two different perspectives within the same chapter. But for me, it's more about what are my characters having to learn or accomplish or whatever. What is the purpose of this chapter? And if they both are trying to get to the same point and it goes together, then it stays in the same chapter for me.
I would say one point of view per scene is probably a better rule.
Yes,
than one point of view
100%.
per scene. And also, if you don't plot, let's say that you're a plantser or a pantser.
You're wrong, but let's say it. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Okay, new debate. You can look at what you've written and you can find that emotional hook moment where there's a tension or a question or something. And you can split it there after it's already been written. You don't have to plan it that way if that's not how you work. You go, oh, this is a real emotional moment of where, what's going to happen now? Let's split the chapter there. And that's a really good way to do it.
Because you know why? Guess what that does? That makes your reader want to turn the page.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, if you're a reader, and I've got caught in this, I'm just going to read one chapter. But then you get to the end of the chapter, you're like, oh man, okay, I'm just going to read a little bit of the next chapter. But then you end up reading the whole next chapter. And then there's another thing, and you got to go to the next chapter. And that's how you end up staying up all night reading a book.
That is the same mistake. That mistake is on par with going to Aldi and saying, I don't need a cart. And,
right.
Yeah. So just one chapter is like a reading version of that.
We need to have like branded T-shirts that just say "just one more chapter." Christianity writers.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So again, where do you break for a chapter? It doesn't mean that the scene is done. You can have one scene go across more than one chapter, but when you leave it there, like at the tension mark. Well, we'll talk about the techniques, right? We're supposed to be moving on to techniques. I'm getting ahead of us. So bad.
Right. So we want to end with uncertainty, or there's some kind of decision that needs to be made, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you use shorter chapters or scenes when it's going to be tension, and then you want to end at the right spot. Yep.
And if you have like dueling plot lines, so you've got, a subplot going on in your book, try making one be more languid. So as your hero is at, everything is going crazy, the building's about to explode or the bomb's about to go off, whatever. And then meanwhile, back at the ranch, it's another languid day, back and forth. And that is a technique that you can use when you're splitting up your chapters, right? Because then your readers are anxious to get back to that high energy on the edge of your seat situation, but they've got to quote unquote slog through this other, but hopefully they like that too, because they want to know what's going on there too. And so they're just like hungry for that chapter that picks up that other plot line.
Especially,
I've read books where like each chapter is a different person's point of view, and they go back and forth, and you get to the end of this of chapter 1 and you're like, oh, I got to know what happens to Anna next. And then the next chapter is about Ralph. And you get to the end of Ralph's chapter and you're like, oh, I have to know what's going to happen to Ralph next. But then you have to read about what happened to Anna next first.
So there's one way of doing the parallel, right? Is where like it's the same scene but you're getting from different perspectives, which is awesome. But then also like what Jamie said, when you have two different scenes, two different people, but they're somehow connected, right? Like, so the language scene, like maybe they're making a decision or a discovery that's going to affect the high pace one, and they have no idea. Or the person in the language scene has no idea that this action is happening over here, and what they're doing over here. You're like, no, don't. If you only knew, So that makes it for a good, like, so even though like it slows the pace down and lets their heart rates lower, it still is like keeps you wanting to turn the page. So yeah, those are some really good techniques. So,
okay. So we have any examples that we want to talk about?
Okay. So yes. So I've done this a couple times. I want to do it more though. And I read it and I don't remember who the author was, but there was an author that I was reading a couple years ago, and I felt like she did a good job with it. She did not overdo it, but the last sentence of the chapter would be the same sentence of the next chapter, a different character saying it with a different meaning. And I loved it because it was like, say someone would say, well, I guess that's just, I guess we're like, like a high pace. I guess this is the end of the world. And then the next person opened up like, well, I guess it's the end of the world. Someone being sarcastic and then moving on, like, and like, so that's a really bad example. I should look this author. I should try to figure out what book it was, but I really love, nope, it wasn't Mary Connolly. Cause honestly, I'm not going to say that out loud. It was not Mary Connolly. But she probably does that. I think it's a commonly used technique. I think when it's done well, it's really great. I wouldn't do it every chapter because then it's overdone. But I think that that's a really great technique to take a high pace and then match it to it, like to kind of make you flow into the next one. So especially
I think that's really good advice. What you said, like don't do it every chapter. Like don't do any of these techniques every single chapter. You want to mix it up and you want to give your readers some variety. And because for me personally, I hate predictability. So the more unpredictable you can make it, the better for people like me. I know there's some people that like predictability, but I'm not one of them.
And always remember that writing is a craft. You need to find your own lane. Just like a potter is going to leave their mark on a piece of pottery, you need to figure out how your brushes sort of work in your own paint box. So play around with this stuff.
Okay. Let's move on and talk about balancing depth and forward thrust.
Yes.
So momentum doesn't mean that it's shallow. Readers stay hooked when they care deeply, especially about your characters. They might care deeply about the plot line, like the world's going to blow up, but the reason they care about the world blowing up is because they care about the characters living in the world.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
So I guess what you're saying is even if your pacing is fast, that doesn't mean it's shallow, that the writing is shallow. Like there's still a lot happening. Don't forget to talk about how the character is feeling during these intense times, because your brain might think, oh, I'm slowing it down, but really you're not. You're just making it more realistic. That's when you pay more attention to like sentence length, and you don't go into it as much as you would have, so that you're not dragging down the pacing, but you're not making it superficial just because the action has picked up.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So what are some tips for doing that?
I think that, and this might sound contradictory to what we've been saying before, but I think that it's okay to weave some introspection into the action, especially like if your character has to make a decision. I'm thinking of like fantasy novels where there's like a battle, whatnot. If you read like Lord of the Rings, there's for sure moments in the action where characters have to think deeply for a moment. It has to be handled well. Um, I don't know if I handled it well, or I think I did okay with it. In my second book, it opens with a battle scene, which is not what you would expect from a romance, but was necessary for the book. And it is the middle of a battle scene, and at some point it's almost like my character kind of leaves his own body mentally, like he's separating what he's doing because he's battling, like, and he's taking people's lives, and like he had to separate, like, kind of until he gets injured and the pain brings him back to like really reality. And so I felt like I had to do that. There's many reasons, many purposes of that chapter, because my character is injured in the book. He has a bad injury, and it affects his life. So he has to get the injury. But also it helps us to see inside of like him, who he is, and like kind of what he's been through a little bit. So I think that you can do that. So so maybe like if it's feeling a little too intense, maybe you add a little bit of some introspection into your action. That would be one suggestion.
And if you don't want to go too deeply into and then he thought about this, one technique I like to use is like they blurt out something like in the tension, like, no, not Susie, like, like
Right.
they're in a battle and then they see Susie get shot and they're like, no, not Susie. Like, so you can show so much in those 3 words.
Yes. Like, so in my book, the character actually makes eye contact with one of the people that he just like mortally injured. And immediately he thinks of this kid, Will, that's also serving in the military with him. So then there's a person. Now I didn't have to say all of a sudden he saw this young man and made a personal, like I didn't have to, I showed it like within a second by doing that. Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
Yep. So sensory detail, internal conflict, sparingly, dialogue, symbolic actions. Does anyone have it? Either of you guys have an example of symbolic action?
Like when someone sacrifices themselves, you don't have to tell anybody that they are like a good person, or they somehow their personality's changed, or they've been some sort of redemption. That action speaks a lot, right? Can speak a lot in a I mean, we talked about K-pop demon hunters last week, but like there is a moment when somebody sacrifices themselves, but up to that point he was going back and forth between it being, this person is he a good guy, is he a bad guy? And then when the sacrifice happens, you're like, yes, even though like, bummer he got sacrificed, but at the same time you're like, I knew he was good down deep inside somewhere, so that would be an example of a symbolic action.
My brain immediately went to all these movies I've seen where somebody's about to go do something dangerous or heroic or in the battle, and they make the sign of the cross, right?
Oh yeah.
And it says 1,000 things without saying anything. Like no words, like a lot about this person just by that. That action symbolizes something.
Kneeling and praying really quick. You don't have to even go inside their head. You just that says something about the character. Yeah.
So Jesus' parables show perfect pacing, short, vivid, emotionally deep. He didn't waste words, but every one of them had truth.
Yeah, he didn't really. He was kind of Hemingway about it, wasn't he?
He really was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he didn't stop to explain them most of the time either. So I think that's something that I had to work out of myself. Like, that's not the right way to say it, but that's something I had to train out of myself, the need to explain everything. Like my reader needs to understand this instead of trusting them to intuitively be able to understand what's happening without me having to explain everything.
Well, and the only way you discover what you need to fix is to write more. So good for you that you wrote enough to realize that this was an area that you had to improve. So write so you can see these trends in your own work.
Okay, let's talk really fast about some common pacing pitfalls. We're running out of time, so um, let's just go through some.
Yeah, too much description. It can slow your narrative down. I'm not a fan of a lot of descriptive writing. Sometimes people want the narrative to be slow, but watch out for it dragging your stuff down.
Mhm. Uh, Unimportant dialogue. Like your dialogue
Yeah.
has to be very focused. Like and has to like when you're in a fast pace, it has to every word that comes out of your character's mouths has to have a purpose. Like there's no like casual talk to get to the point. No, when you're in a fast pace, it has to be the point immediately.
And we already talked about you can't always be at that extreme point of tension. You've got to let it breathe. We talked about that earlier, and now's a good time to remind you, let's mix it up a little bit, right?
Mhm. And it has to fulfill, like we said before, it has to fulfill a purpose. If every scene I feel like has to fulfill a purpose, but like if it's just a filler scene and nothing changes, it doesn't move your story forward, then it's
Mhm.
unnecessary in order to like write something exciting. There needs to be a purpose for it.
Yeah, I would say every word spoken, every action taken, every description given, every word written needs to move your story forward. And if it's not, it has to get cut.
I would say
So
it's true in your slower chapters too, but that's just me.
Yes,
But mhm.
exactly.
speaking of cutting, that's next we're going to talk about how to fix this stuff, right? And
Right.
the first thing on there is to trim these redundancies that you've got going on.
And to add goals and conflict to every scene.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. There's got to be something that the people want in the scene.
Mhm.
Okay.
All right.
Let's talk about some practical takeaways.
Yeah.
Um,
Go ahead, Jen.
I was just gonna say, look at your scenes. Like, don't read them. Just look at them and see, like, are you varying the length of your scenes? Are some scenes
Mhm.
long and some short? If not, like, if every single chapter or scene is exactly like 2,500 words, like, that's a great goal for when you're writing, right? That's a great to like keep yourself on track for writing, but you need to have some varying lengths for it to not feel like stilted.
Okay.
Yeah, and even if you write before you plot, go back and identify the tension and the peaks and valleys. If you are a plotter, all the better. Plot in those peaks and valleys to make sure that you've got the breath in and breath out that we were talking about earlier.
Right. I know I joke about you guys being wrong, all those of you that are pantsers, but you at least need it's a style choice and that's fine. But you need to at least understand story structure so that after you're done writing, you can go back in and check for these things because that might be why your story feels stilted or doesn't feel like readable to people or they want to put it down is
Mhm.
because you aren't hitting those pacing. That's the whole point of plot points and story beats
Mhm.
is for the pacing.
And I heard somebody, an author, somebody who was talking to authors about writing, say everybody plots. Some people do it before they write, and some people do it after.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
We talked earlier too about that I really like that the idea of ending a chapter and like mimicking it the next chapter. Um, Go back and look at your chapters and all of them at the ends and the beginning and see if you can do that. If you can rewrite them to fit that in, that would be really cool.
Right. Okay. Are we done? Do we have anything else we want to talk about in that topic? I think that we covered it well. Okay, so now is Jamie's favorite time of the podcast. I know for sure because it's the feeding of the backs.
Yay!
And this is where we set a timer for 15 minutes. We each have the same prompt and we write for 15 minutes. When the timer goes off, we stop. We don't edit, we don't plan, we don't revise. And then we read it live on the air for everybody to hear. So Jamie, I'm going to have you go first and you can tell us what our prompt was and then read what you wrote.
Sure. This was in quotes, and it is this following sentence. The letter was sealed with wax, but when she broke it open, the words inside began to fade as though they had never been written.
And
Dun,
did you
dun,
guys notice that
dun.
we had a tense issue in there? So we have never lied about the fact that we for years have used some sort of like generator or AI to help us with with our sentences or our words, so that like we are fresh to it too. Do you know what I mean? But it should have been that the words inside began to fade as though they oh
I think it's the letter had been sealed with wax.
yes.
Probably.
The letter what?
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyways, I corrected it on my screen already, so I don't remember what it was originally. But anyways, so we apologize for that. Go ahead, Jamie. Sorry.
All right. So the letter was sealed with wax, but when she broke it open, the words inside began to fade as though they'd never been written. A dragonfly zoomed in. A dragonfly zoomed in from behind Kala's shoulder and hovered over the right upper corner of the paper for an instant. A flame appeared there, accompanied by a tiny whooshing sound, and then the dragonfly was gone. Kala dropped the paper, and Biram approached it to give a cautious sniff before backing away into a fit of snorkels. Kala dropped into a crouch to cuddle and comfort him. Together, she and Biram watched the message turn to ashes. All those miles traveled for that? Leto scoffed. A handful of gibberish words? They mean something. I know it, Kala said, rhythmically stroking the barrel-chested Biram, who seemed as absorbed in thought as she was herself. She wished Leto could understand, but Leto was Quicksilver. Good thing, on the one hand, as she and Biram would still be languishing in Entervax instead of so much closer to. To what? Leto said, snatching at one of her thoughts in that haphazard way of his. All those miles traveled, all that we've endured, to wind up here? He threw his arms up and gave the general environs of the heatscape a disgusted snarl. We've been deceived, that's clear. Kala felt a vibration under her hand. What is it, boy? Biram's growl became barely audible as Kala tried to see what he was seeing. Show me, she invited, standing, and the stately beast began moving immediately to the north. There's nothing there, Biram. It's a trick of the witch, to be sure. Kala did not bother to answer this. Leto could follow now or catch up later after having a good sulk. She didn't need to soak in despondency. She needed to keep her momentum going. She followed Biram to the edge of the copse of matchstick trees, which collectively quaked as if within the grasp of an invisible, mighty, tremoring hand. Oh boy, she breathed, and Biram chuffed out a raspy, brusque reply. She could tell he was curious but cautious. She reached to place her hand on his head. And then the timer went off.
Methinks I like it when Jamie writes fantasy. Yeah, I loved it.
So many questions, but that's not a critique at all.
Right. I want to turn the page, which is what we were talking about this whole time, right? There's so much. I love it. So this is not like, I would not say this is fast paced because you give a lot of description. For somebody who says they don't like description, you did really well giving a ton of description.
Thanks.
But I feel like you set it up to where I can feel the genre. I feel like, again, like Tina, I have questions. And I love like the matchstick trees. Like I could see it all. Like just really well done, Jamie.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I really had fun with this.
The guy like interrupting her thoughts, like almost rudely, and her trying to see what the beast next to her, like, you never tell us what that beast is. At least I didn't catch it. If you did, because sometimes I was like caught on some of your word choices that were like exquisite and you just want to like let them roll around on your taste buds for a while. But that like took you straight into your fantasy world without you having to say this is a fantasy world. Even like we just knew.
Or be very heavy-handed with the fantasy part, right? Like people can be very heavy-handed with it, and you weren't. It was very well done. Christy agrees. She said, "Oh my goodness, Jamie, is there a genre that you can't write? Because I think you've nailed every one." I agree.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that was
I really enjoyed this. I really did. Thank you, guys.
Okay, I'll go next. I thought I lost my my stuff, but it had just scrolled down to the blank part of the page. I'm like, what happened to it? Okay, I really didn't like this sentence when we started, but I had fun. So here we go. Mackenzie brushed away the cobwebs in the doorway, doing her best to ignore the shiver that raced up her spine. Her great-uncle's house had obviously been vacant and neglected for years. A thick layer of dust coated every surface and the cobwebs. An image of a movie she'd watched as a kid where the entire town had been taken over by millions of migrating tarantulas filled her mind. That was in Texas somewhere, she said out loud, and it's far too cold here for tarantulas. Still, the heebie-jeebies crawled across her flesh. Ducking her head and doing her best to maneuver through the cobwebs unscathed, she made her way up the spiral staircase to the right side of the entryway. Aunt Connie had said Uncle Horace's study was upstairs on the right. The stairs creaked and groaned as she climbed. Please don't break, she pleaded. The sound of her voice, instead of feeling comforting, only echoed through the empty house. Something scurried across the floor below. The sound reached her ears moments after she caught a flash of movement in the corner of her eye. She fought the urge to scream, took a deep breath, and continued up the staircase. The hallway at the top was dark and full of cobwebs, blocking the path like a series of silken doorways. She turned on the flashlight on her phone when, with one arm out in front of her and the other across her face, she raced through the sticky threads until she reached the heavy oak door at the end of the hallway. It opened with a screech. Mackenzie cringed, hoping there was nothing sinister that might be alerted to her presence. She hurried to the bookshelf, looking for the spine of a large red book. There it was, right where Aunt Connie said it would be. Dust filled the air as Mackenzie pulled the book from its place, tickling her nose. No time for sneezing, she scolded, pinching her nose till the sensation passed. She wiped the dust off the cover. War and Peace written in a beautiful prose of ages past. Yep, this was the right book. She opened the cover, and there it was, right where Aunt Connie promised, the letter that would finally reveal the secret she'd been searching for her whole life. The letter was sealed with wax, but when she broke it open, the words inside began to fade, as though they had never been written.
No, she doesn't get to know the secret.
Tina. I thought we were gonna get a ghost story from you, and I wondered if like as you're reading, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be a ghost story. But yeah, why did they fade? Like, so well done. Like all the description, I can see the book, I see the dust. We've all experienced that sensation where you need to sneeze, and yeah, I thought it was really good. But how dare you end it like that?
The timer went off, and then I had to quickly copy and paste the sentence at the prompt sentence at the end.
I like that she hid it inside War and Peace, because who's going to look in there?
Right. Exactly.
I did read War and Peace. Someone gave me
I did too.
a badge that I could put on my social media. Here's your badge.
I liked War and Peace.
You did?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I mean, I've never even tried, so I guess I shouldn't judge, because
we can debate its merits at some point with Jen watching, and she can determine if she wants to listen.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, really well done. I don't know if Christy enjoyed it or not, because she just keeps yelling no at you. No.
I get that a lot, especially from my teenager granddaughter.
Oh, that's funny. All right, I'll go next. I massaged the sentence a little bit, so you have to forgive me. So, the letter was sealed with wax. A bit of a pretentious flex, Marnie thought, as she tore open the foil embossed envelope. As she read the invitation, the words inside began to fade as though they had never been written, blurring from the tears she had no ability to control. The invitation was to an engagement party. Mr. Boss's engagement party. How could she have been so stupid? He was engaged, and she had let herself fall in love with him. Her mind began replaying the events of the past few months. The long weekends with no contact, the phone calls he left the room to take. Why hadn't she questioned it before? Because, she reasoned, she couldn't stand him at first. By the time she realized that she was falling for him, she was too stupid in love to question anything the big jerk did. Well, that hate turned love had just as quickly turned back to hate. In the distance, she heard the quiet shuffle of her coworkers entering the office. She quickly swiped at her eyes, determined to fake a sneezing fit when someone came near to disguise the true cause of her tears. Though once they all started opening their own invitations, it wouldn't take long for the knowing glances to come her way. She wondered momentarily if she had time to gather everyone's invitations and throw them away before anyone got to their desks. But even as she was convincing herself of the futility of that, she noticed something strange. No one else's desk had an invitation on it. She was the only person who received the mysterious invite. 3, 2, 1.
No, it's not enough. Well, I mean, maybe I'll get the whole book just by showing up every Friday. So, like, where's this book so I can find out what happens? So, very good work, obviously, if I feel that way about it.
Thanks.
My mind is just going in a million different directions, and I'm like, this is actually like the proposal. Like she's gonna show up, and she's gonna be the only one there, and he's gonna propose to her.
Oh,
And that's
Like,
it's like,
because she has to get the guy. Like, we have invested far too much in this relationship over the years for her not to get the guy.
I know, right?
Well, Tina, you should know you get a happily ever after. That's why you don't read romance, is because you don't like the guaranteed outcome. So
that's true.
That's true. We know it'll work out, but how will it work out? How could it work out?
You know, it's funny. I was like, I'm never using this. Is not going to go in the book. But then when Tina said that, I'm like, maybe.
That's what Christy said too. That she thought maybe it was her engagement that it was an invitation to.
Yeah, maybe.
Could be. Mr. Boss is tricky that way.
Who knows? I don't even know. Like this is me pantsing. I don't know what's going to happen.
All right. I'm going to say goodbye for now. I'll catch you all next week.
All right. Okay. Bye, James.
Okay. That was a lot of fun. I liked that sentence, even though I hated it. Like, when was that? At 9:40?
Yeah, right.
All right. What's next for you?
Well, first of all, let's hit our chat up. Catherine's here this morning. Good morning, Catherine. And we've got Lene Dane is here as well. Good morning, Lene. And Christy, we know we've been talking with her as well. She said early on that she loved our David example. I agree. Thank you. So also Catherine says that she does it every once in a while. She was talking about when we end a chapter with the same sentence that we start the next chapter with. And she says, and one of my beta readers thought, but we never got the rest of that. So I'm curious, Catherine, what did they think? And Christy says, this is definitely a topic I will need to come back to. Thank you so much for all the information. We appreciate that. It's funny, like I think that as writers, there's some things you just start doing or you get better at, and then you don't really think about it. And then when you pose it as a question and you start, like we do, like put it into an outline for us to discuss, you're like, yeah, this is like a full discussion to just talk about pacing, right? Something that like when you're first starting out, I was terrible at this. I should have said that earlier in the episode. I was really, really bad because it was my first book ended up being my third book, and then I had to go back and fix it. And it was I liked the final product, but it took a long time to get there because I was just writing like it was some sort of like a bunch of Little House on the Prairie episodes. Every chapter was like an whole episode. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't understand story structure, and there was definitely no pacing. So it's something that I've gotten better at, obviously.
Yeah, my whole first book I threw away and started over.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. Same. Like you learn this stuff as you go. There was a lot of stuff we didn't have time to get to. So maybe a blog post is in order.
Yeah.
To like give out some more information that we had found.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Catherine says that someone thought that it was an error. Everyone else loved it. Yeah, I love it. So I've had people think that some things I do is an error. I meant to mention this earlier. I actually, one of my bad reviews, did not like my pacing. They basically, I should have pulled it up and just read it out loud, but they basically said, slow down already. I need to breathe. Like we're literally what they put in the outline, but the review, but it's the only review I've gotten like that for that book. Most everybody loves it. The other feedback I get from some people with that book is they don't understand, like they get confused. I tried being very clear that, but just so you know, my book 2, the main character falls in love with Esther, but the entire book almost he thinks it's Phoebe. And so, but I try to be very clear with that.
I thought you
However,
did a good job with that.
thank you. I appreciate that. But I really don't get negative feedback. Honestly, I get like older people that read it that I like that meet me personally and just be like, and ask me like, I don't understand. Like I had one lady in my church who just recently discovered I was a writer. So she started reading my books. And when she was reading book 2, she came to me very confused. She's like, I don't understand how can he be in love with both Phoebe and Esther? I don't get it. Like, and so I had to explain to her what was happening. And so I said, when you read his chapters, you have to think, well, he thinks it's Phoebe, but you know it's Esther. So and so she's like, I have to start over. So then she read it over and came back. She's like, yeah, I like it. But she also came back and said that she liked book 3 the best, which is the book was the hardest for me and it was in rough shape. So anyway.
Right. The some of the one bad review that I got, and it was a 3-star, I guess, was that I ended my book with a cliffhanger. And I'm like, no, the story was over and I had an epilogue
to read to reach to the next book.
It was an epilogue. It was not a cliffhanger.
Which is funny because like people who are avid readers get that. I think that people that don't read a whole lot maybe don't get that, but I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, well, you know, they say you're not a real writer until you have like a 1-star review at least.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not a real writer yet because I think my lowest right now is 3, although I haven't been in there in months and months to check it. So
yeah, it's nice when you don't check it and then all of a sudden you're like, I should go check it, and you go and you're like, oh, I have some new reviews. That's always nice.
Right.
So
yeah.
All right. Well, you asked me what was going on with me this week. So I don't know if you've watched it last week and this week. You might notice I seem a little maybe out of it. I've been struggling with headaches. I've struggled with headaches my whole life, but I have really been struggling with headaches, like tension headaches. I went for years not understanding what was wrong with me, and doctors just wanted to medicate me until I had a specialist say, well, it's not this, so have a great day. I'm like, that's it? Like, you're supposed to be the top dog. Like, you're supposed to come up with the answers for me. And he's like, well, I don't know what you want me to tell you. I can up your medication. And I'm like, I would rather not. And then he's like, I can send you to physical therapy. I don't know what you want. I said, okay, that's at least something. And he did. And the physical therapist is the one that figured out it was just tension headaches, but it was so bad, the back of my neck and shoulders and back of my head, that it hurt my whole head. And I couldn't tell where the pain was coming from until she started to loosen things up. So anyway, about a week and a half ago, for some reason, everything just locked up. I didn't do anything. And so I've been like struggling, trying to like do what the therapist has taught me to do. And so anyways, I would just appreciate some prayers because I've not been able to focus really on anything. Other than like last night I took a muscle relaxer. I don't like to do that because it makes me get super tired. But that helped. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to show up today, to be quite honest. So I've got no writing done. I've got nothing else done.
We were a little worried about whether you're going to be able to show up. And then the power company was like doing stuff right outside my house. And I was like, am I going to lose power? So apparently our prayers worked this morning. So we're here and we made it through.
Yep.
So my 3-nager is coming over in about an hour.
Your little granddaughter.
Yes. Yes, she like I think it's been a couple weeks now where she just like boom. She's a few weeks away from being 3, and all of a sudden like this just monster. Like she doesn't want to do anything that you say. Like she wants to argue with you. She wants to run in the other room and throw a fit. I told her no one day, and she ran crying in the other room to my daughter's boss. And when my daughter's boss picked her up and said, why are you crying? She pointed at me like this and said, she said no.
That's awesome.
I sure did. So she was tattling. But so we'll see how this is going to go, because her mom won't be here, which is usually easier than when her mom's here, because she already knows grandma doesn't. I'm not one of those soft grandmas.
Yeah, me either.
You know.
Well, I don't know. I shouldn't say me either. I have baby daughter,
Right.
yeah.
But I think usually your parenting style does kind of bleed over into your grandparenting style. I know a lot of people are like softer as grandparents. I still expect obedience.
Mhm.
Like I expect it.
Yeah.
And if you don't give it, then there will be consequences. So that's what I'm looking for. And my daughter and my son-in-law are going to Mackinac Island on Tuesday, and they're going to be gone for 2 nights, and I have her.
Oh,
So
fun. Yay.
overnight for 2 nights in a row. So we'll see how that goes. I
Oh,
could
that's
use some
awesome.
prayers probably.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Catherine, her what's up is she finally finished her book and sent it to beta team.
Yay, how exciting.
Congratulations. That is exciting, Catherine. I can't wait to hear more about that at our salon this week. So if you are a Patreon supporter, this coming Tuesday night is our monthly, we used to call it Q&A, but honestly, it's more of a salon. It is, we come in and we discuss a topic. We talked about what we're going to talk about this month, but I don't remember what it was. We had a specific, we'll figure it out and we'll text y'all in the group
Yeah,
chat.
I don't remember either. So
If you are not a Patreon supporter, to be able to do this part with us, it's only $5 a month, and that $5 helps to support this podcast, for this ministry to continue, because it does cost us money to be able to do the things that we're doing here.
yeah.
So we'd appreciate that little help if you appreciate this. Also, again, like Tina started off the podcast with, if you do like we do, we would really appreciate that if you like and subscribe wherever it is that you listen to or watch this. It really does make a difference. And if you have never gone over to Facebook and followed us on Facebook, we'd appreciate if you would do that too. Because we've got some plans of things we would like to do once we reach the 1,000. So
yeah, so excited about that. And the 3-nager might show up at the salon on a Tuesday night. So that's worth $5 right there.
Right.
Maybe not. Okay. So for this week, that concludes this episode of the Christianity Writers Podcast. Until next week, may your pen be prolific, your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ.
Bye
now.